And welcome to the Pokemon Trading Card Game special event from Turin in Italy. My name is Ross, and I'm joined today, again, by the lovely Shay Burton. And I got to tell you, Shay, we got to start with this.
Yep.
Mew is running rampant. Here it is a top seed at 9-0. I had a bit of a peek at the Milwaukee standings. It is the only 801. It is one of the 8-1s as well. It's top seed here. It's top seed in Milwaukee. I thought Mew was going to have a target on his back and wasn't a good play for this event.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You always see with Mew's popularity events, it's almost like reverse bell curve, right? Where it does really well and everyone's like, fine, we'll put the Drapions in, we'll put, Avery maybe, or collapse stadiums just to really disrupt the Mew. But it seems to be, at least so far, and I really don't want to jinx all these Mew players, but they seem to be doing just fine here over both events, all the way across the world. Mew is still dominating. As we can see there, this is a Fusion Mew deck analysis, making use of Meloetta to get some big KOs with a one prize Pokemon, giving you a slightly better Lost Box matchup, and then having good matchups against Arceus, V-Star, Miraidon, and all of that. And quite honestly, Ross, I would not be surprised to see Mew VMAX take it all home again. But will we see it win multiple regionals? I'm not 100% sure, but as it stands now, in a very good position. But I also saw some spice going around yesterday. There was an Oikalone that was on its way in for day 2, didn't quite make it. There is a Lost Box with a 1-1 Melodic line to stop, Roxanne and anything like this. So I'm really excited. But I think your deck that you picked is also doing quite well.
Oh, though I spent yesterday talking about Miraidon, Mike was not terribly kind to me when I said how good I thought Miraidon was going to be. And it turns out, now it's not having a great showing here in Turin. I'm not seeing it around too much. But there are multiples in day 2 of Milwaukee, including one of the top seeds at 8 wins and 1 loss. So Miraidon is absolutely there. Now we see on the graphic here, we have got it there with Flaffy. It doesn't have to be played with Flaffy. Like with Mew having the double turbo build or the fusion build, there are different ways to build Miraidon. You can build it with Flaffy for the energy acceleration. You can go for a more turbo build relying on that electro generator item card, not playing Flaffy and just hoping that electro generator will get you there. But the thing about Miraidon, and the reason I love it so much, it is fast. It will get cheeky KOs, potentially turn 1 going second. It is, if it sets up that quickly, your only choices are have a good matchup and set up as fast, or you're probably going to lose. That's why I'm such a fan of Miraidon, and frankly, at least over in Milwaukee, I'm starting to feel vindicated.
Yeah, no, 100%. And a little bit of info for you viewers at home. I actually made some of these graphics. I applied the information. And when I was doing these, looking at the information about, matchups and all that, it seems to be Miraidon doesn't have very good matchups. But what Miraidon does do, like you said, it puts your opponent on a very strict, fast time. If you're swinging for that 200 damage turn 1 and your opponent hasn't got anything going on, it can get a little bit dicey. And as you said, was 801, I think you said, right? Or so
8-1 at the moment.
8-1. So what a fantastic record to be going into day 2. And again, wouldn't be surprised to see it do well. We saw it do well at EUIC. Could it be Miraidon's time?
I mean, I hope it's Miraidon's time, quite frankly. That would make me happy. But you know what else would make me happy, Shay?
What's that?
Seeing some games. We need to see some games. So round 1 is ready to go for day 2. So let's head on over to the desk with Alex and Mike. Let's get this action rolling.
Thanks a lot, guys. We are excited for today. We've had a lot of exciting team matchups, the way the different cards are playing against each other. But ultimately, there's always going to be those spicy little decks coming through, and I know Ross was very excited to see that from the other day. My name is Mike. I'm here with Alex. Alex, we're about to go into day 2 here at Turin. How are you feeling?
Yeah, super excited. Lots of great matchups that we're going to be hopefully featuring for everyone at home and everyone watching the stream for day 2. We are going to be bringing our top 2 players from day 1 for an exciting matchup. 2 very, well, at least one is a regional champion already this season, as we do get a chance to showcase both players here for you now. On our left is our Liverpool regional champion, Leon Kesselring, running it back with Mew VMAX up against Nate Doyle.
Yeah, Leon did an amazing job at that tournament, and I remember thinking, this is the start of something special. He's, got a lot of experience, but not necessarily had a huge amount of results. I think it's when you start getting those big wins, that's where you get really inspired to start taking it more seriously, start investing more of your time into preparation. And right now is going into this tournament in a very strong spot. 801, I believe.
Yep.
So we'll be looking to carry on that record and put themselves in the best position for a top 8. On the other side, Nate Doyle.
Yeah, again, also running it back with a Mew VMAX list as well. In the same tournament that Leon had won, got a top 32 finish at Liverpool Regionals, but playing the Musion Few.
The
Mew
Musion
Few. We've made that work. Yeah, Mew Fusion. But this time, both players playing a mirror match with the Path and DT version.
Yeah, there's some differences between the two lists, and I'm interested to see how this pans out. In this matchup, it might not be as relevant because both decks are very consistent, but I think the Leon list is a very typical one that we've seen a lot of. You know, the 4-path, lots of judge, also has typical counts of all of the other cards around the list. But then on the other side, we see 4 Featherball in Nate's list, which is something I've not seen before, and 4 Forest Seal Stone, so really leaning into those super consistent cards as we see. Just to start things off, Leon, that is an energy there, but it's not acting as an energy.
Yep, exactly. We just had confirmation that Leon will be playing with some proxies in his list, so it will have some energy cards with the names written on the cards themselves. I think there was just quite a number of cards that maybe was a little bit slightly warped, but...
I mean, if he's been playing since Liverpool, I'm
Yeah.
sure those Mews have had some play time. So yeah, just through the deck check process. We've seen this in the past. The energy replacement is the typical way to cover up a card that might be warped or damaged in some way. So just so you get used to that, hopefully we'll be able to talk you through what each of them is. It looks like the Lightning Energy are Mew Vs, and I'd assume the Fighting Energy is a Genesect V.
Yeah, so we'll do our best to follow along for you guys as well. Hopefully it doesn't throw Leon off completely, not seeing his Pokemon in there and just seeing energy cards, but he is 801 after all, as he has kicked things off with that Battle VIP pass.
Exactly, and as we mentioned, the lists are slightly different, and I think the differences will favour Leon potentially because he has more of the Disruption package, has 4 of the Path, so that might make it easier to set that up. Where on the other side, there is only 2 Path and 3 Lost Vacuum, as well as a Lost City to be able to disrupt that path. So the Nate list is more in favour of consistency and going down a slightly different route of disruption, having that Lost City to counter things like Drapion, where Leon's list is very much traditional currently with the double turbo energy.
Yeah, I mean, I think both players just, they're both 16 wins across both players, as we do see the first Fusion Strike system after this ball search from Leon's side of the field. Yeah, with Nate having a quite unique take by having 4 Forest Seal Stones, he just wants to be able to, in these kind of matchups, I guess, get out of that path lock.
It's also, in the early stages of a lot of games, it guarantees a Battle VIP pass. Every Forest Seal Stone acts as a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Battle VIP pass. So if you are struggling with your first hand, it can make it more likely to get going. But realistically, in this matchup, you do want to be saving it just to try and guarantee that path bump. So we'll see. As you can see there, there was a Grass Energy in Leon's hand, which I think is acting as the Mew VMAX. So hopefully you guys can follow along with that.
Yeah, hopefully it's clear enough for you guys at home. But like I said, we'll do our best to make sure we follow alongside as their 3rd Fusion Strike system is activated here now as he draws up to the 6 cards in hand.
Oh, got everything he needs there. Double turbo energy and has the path if he wants to place it.
With the vacuum in hand as well for further turns. Does play the escape rope now to cut into that free retreat pivot in case Nate does end up judging, of course, on his turn, as Nate is passed over to Nate now for his first turn of our round 10.
The only thing lacking there for Leon could be the Forest Seal Stone, which would have allowed a more guaranteed out of the situation. And you see that on the other side, one of those 4 Forest Seal Stone Nate is playing is in play. So we'll be able to have a turn here, just deciding what the angle of approach is.
Yeah, I think some pretty strong cards in his hand himself. He does have the Judge ready, is considering having to Ultra Ball away one of those DTEs, having already attached to the active Mew V. As you mentioned, the Forest Seal Stone already attached as well. Likely to look here for just another Pokemon as he does start to maybe consider disrupting from his end.
Yeah, also with the discard of the Switch Cut and the Double Turbo Energy, they are 2 switch outs, so count those up if you're Leon to see if a Genesect Gust could be an option later on for disruption. And just a few different things to think about. But that judge, not only is it going to be effective at resetting a hand and maybe finding more Pokemon, but if Leon doesn't find a lost vacuum off of that, they could be in a sticky situation.
Yeah, I think it's, at least he has that out there as he's just double checking his prizes. Nothing we've covered as of yet, but for both players, the couple of judges from Leon's side that kind of reduces the potential disruption from his boards. And Nate only really has sort of nothing too crazy. I think they're just sort of one copies of his many 3 and 4 outs. So maybe that power pad could come into effect at some stage.
Yeah, we'll see in this stage. Just getting that deck check out, trying to find out what's in those prizes. We'll notice, you know, the power tablet could come in later on as well. You know, there's so many things that could be relevant at any given point. But this is why Mew is such a strong deck right now as well, because a lot of the important cards, you find 4 of them in the deck. So, you know, if you do get, say, a path to the peak in the prizes or a judge in the prizes, it's not too big an issue. I know that Choice Belt would typically be quite a worrying prize card, but you do have Cleansing Glove and 2 Choice Belts in Leon's list, so those tool cards that do an extra 30 damage, heavily available.
Yeah, and this judge, I think, is actually really important from Nate's side, because Leon now, without that Forest Seal Stone currently attached to anything, I believe, it means that he doesn't right now, unless he draws it from the 4 plus the 1 top deck, and out to a path to the peak of his own, as Nate may be able to just kind of get into the game and stifle him that way. As we see the hand, there's nothing too great there.
Does get the Mew VMAX though, so we'll be able to get an attack off of some sort. But yeah, not ideal for the long-term sustainability of this board state. And we'll see what that does for Leon. Does have access to 2 Mew VMAX as well, so might even be able to set up a future one, but no energy for that next one afterwards.
I think from Nate's side, he'll be looking with that Battle VIP Pass, getting more Pokemon out. Does play that unique count of 4 Feather Balls as well, so looking to utilize maybe getting more Genesects out with a VIP, and then hoping to hit into those feathers for the Mews and the Mew VMAXs. He has access to that Forest Seal Stone. He's probably looking for a path to the peak of his own if he's able to get the Lost Vacuum out from the Forest Seal, which he does activate that V-Star ability, that Star Alchemy. Looking for that one extra combo piece of the deck, does put the Lost Vacuum to the front, and we're going to start seeing some more Fusion Strike systems in our first game.
Yeah, the Feather Ball's an interesting one, because the Nest Ball count has gone down and down in Mew lists, and the Feather Ball count going up and up. And this is the highest ratio of Feather Ball to Nest Ball I've seen so far. There is the 1 Nest Ball in there, but a Nest Ball is often a late game hand clogger, and you don't want to have too many of those. So by having lots of Feather Ball, they are always a playable card, so you can just thin them out every time, and it's great because it can find you your Mews or your Mew VMAX, so it's good early on and late game, as well as a card that can be instantly thinned. So really looking to have a deck that can be thinned down, Nate, increasing the counts of the insta-playable cards that are useful.
Do you see one of those Feather Balls come down now as well, likely to just grab another Mew V, so he can start drawing up to the full value of the Fusion Strike systems. We'll be digging for that path to the peak to try and just disrupt Leon's side of the board. I would assume. I don't want to put too many words in their mouths, of course.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this build here. You can see the power of having high counts of Forest Seals and high counts of Feather Ball here as we start that Fusion Strike system. The only downside to this build, as we mentioned before, is the lower counts of the disruption cards and the cards that get you out.
Oh, and there it is.
Lost Vacuum. But yeah, it gets that path there. You know, almost guaranteed off the amount of draw you're getting here.
Currently doesn't have the Mew VMAX ready for to get going for next turn, I don't believe.
There's a Feather Ball
There's
in
a
there.
Feather Ball, okay. Maybe
there's loads of those Feather Balls.
There are loads of those.
Loads of them.
He's not hitting just that one off. He has now crammed away his escape rope. Does hit the heads, which is fantastic. But as we already mentioned, the switch cart's gone. The escape rope now is gone. He does have one more sort of, well, other than the DTs that are available, the 2 that are still somewhere in the deck or hand, does also play the penny, I believe. So that's his other way out if Leon does start trying to target down a bit of a stall to give him maybe a turn. But, you know, Leon will be looking that switch card and an escape rope already gone.
Yeah, and this is the key with Mew, is early on, you do have to discard important cards. You don't want to discard too many of them, and you want to bear in mind which of those are gone for both players. So we'll be keeping track of the escape rope, switch cart, double turbo energy, and especially now Silene is very unfavored in the deck. People tend not to be able to get stuff back. So we'll see how that affects the late game. You can see that hand there.
Yeah, that Chromatic just taking a Lost Vacuum, ready for his next turn, because he will be playing one of those Path to the Peaks, and then just top decked with that final Fusion Strike system, his second copy, as he does retreat into the Mew to kind of send up as a potential sacrifice at the end of his turn 1. So both players having very lengthy turn 1s. There comes the Grass Energy Mew VMAX. As we do have an attacker now on the board for Leon. Does boss up a Genesect, looking to just kind of disrupt the draw power in Nate's deck. And we'll just be announcing a Technoblast for the KO, taking and initiating the first 2 prizes.
Yeah, as we mentioned, at this stage, we'll be able to get that knockout, but it's now that thick deck on the side of Leon that is much more susceptible to disruption. So if another judge comes through here for Nate, we could see that whole reset of, can you get out of this one? And so this is still a strong position for Nate, and this is why Mew VMAX is doing so well and why both these players are on 8 wins, is Judge and Path is such a strong combination right now.
Yeah, and just to recall that Mew VMAX with 310 HP is still quite a bulky Pokemon to try and maybe take a knockout here as well. So we'll need lots of different modifiers. The outstood stuff like the Choice Belt or the Cleansing Gloves, and of course multiple tablets as well.
And also you can kind of leave it in the active potentially for a turn, because if you disrupt the hand, not only do you have to find a way to bump the path potentially, but you also need to find a way to retreat and reset that Technoblast can't attack during the next turn text effect. So we'll see whether the Mew VMAX would even be able to reset. So there is a world here where Nate can just hit into it and say, well, I'll get it next turn.
Yeah, it does have Boss in hand, is targeting a Genesect, doing it's the same play as what Leon had done just prior to that, wanting to get more use out of the Path to the Peak, because he knew Leon wasn't able to do too much. As we see now go through the hand, I know he has a Chromatic there. He will maybe need to try and hit that heads to get himself out of this sticky situation. Does have Judge as well, so not a terrible position here for Leon. Despite hitting that Tails, he will get a chance to see more cards at this point.
Yeah, so the Judge, let's see what comes out of this. That Chromatic could have been huge there in hindsight. We'll see after this Judge, but that could have been a massive moment, because if that was a Lost Vacuum, then guaranteed draw after this Judge would be possible. And as we mentioned, Leon has the 4 Path to the Peak, so it's very likely off the back of some draw that you'll come into another Path to the Peak to replace it. Where on Nate's side, only has the 2. So won't be as in control of when the paths go down. And, you know, that's the difference between these 2 builds. One going for more consistency to get set up more often, one finding the disruption package more often.
Yeah, and what we know from Leon's list, because we have, you know, Caster View, he does play the 4 copies of Lost Vacuum in comparison to Nate's 4 Feather Balls, for example, but doesn't seem to have hit it, so will likely need to hit into this Mew VMAX in this active position.
Yeah, and double turbo energy, that's useful for the future, but doesn't necessarily want to use it right now. He's just going to hope off the back of that disruption there that it will make it impossible for the Mew VMAX to reset and do damage. And as we mentioned, all of those switch outs are gone now. So in order to reset this Mew VMAX, you'd have to either set up another one or would have to retreat into a basic and penny it, because both the escape rope and the switch cart are gone.
Does choose to use to deal only the 110, so wants to potentially allow him to utilize Mew VMAX again, because in hand is only that Echoing Horn.
Yeah.
Did, of course, play a power tablet, so it looks like it was a Psychic Leap without jumping in.
Yeah, with that Cleansing Gloves as well. An undervalued part of the Cleansing Gloves there is it's good in the mirror, but yes, a heads on the
Another fantastic heads, yeah.
Oh, Nate is just better with the Chromatics, just better.
Does have the Lost City in hand as well, so already had the Stadium bump to be able to start drawing. Of course, doesn't now have access to his second Path to the Peak, but his first one has stuck. So is this the slight advantage for Nate at this current moment of stage? I mean, he's got a damaged Mew VMAX. He will look to try and maybe set up a second on his board as well. It'll be interesting to see how and which way he goes about to maneuver this turn, because Leon is asking those questions despite having a slightly poorer hand.
I guess trusting that he'll draw into another Mew VMAX if he needs it with the high count of Feather Ball. You know, having 4 Feather Ball, 4 Ultra Ball, and 3 Mew VMAX, that's a lot of outs to another Mew VMAX. has the Ultra Ball in hand, but might even just try to get another Genesect down. Can't, because there's one in the prizes.
Has to focus on keeping that path, or getting that path to stick, or another path in play, which is why he doesn't want to play the Lost City.
Yes.
Because you can only play one stadium per turn, of course. But knowing Leon is struggling with no draw outs right now, Nate is really going to be pushing for this second path to the peak as he continues to set up his own board there, and he's drawn straight into it. He's got to be feeling pretty good about himself right now. He's just got, and is that a feather ball?
That is a feather ball. Has the Ultra Ball as well to thin down the hand a bit. No access to another Genesect because the fourth one is in the prizes there. So might just get another Mew down to try and increase the draw of the two Genesect. But because Leon targeted a Genesect, there's not as much access to the draw now.
Yeah, we'll also be looking for maybe a DT, just maybe attack with a fresh Mew VMAX as well. You know, not giving Leon the opportunity to KO the active Mew VMAX with another Techno Blast, for example. So, you know, there's still maybe one piece remaining. Does Eye Up to try and get and utilize the Ultra Ball to get the Mew VMAX now, and so he can continue drawing with that final Genesect he has on his board.
Yeah, and I think the Ultra Ball there got rid of the Feather Ball, recognizing the Power Tablet was too important to hold on to. Actually just getting a Mew there off of the Ultra Ball.
Banking on the additional draws outs he has with all, well, I guess now that he's had to Ultra Ball away that Feather Ball, maybe was that the right decision?
Well, he wanted to keep the Power Tablet to see if he could try and reach for a knockout, but I think there's just too much to ask off of this one draw.
So it's prioritizing potentially, yeah, with the fourth Mew down now and that Power Tablet utilized, and we know his last card is that path to the peak because he wants to make sure Leon will continue to struggle draw-wise as he does draw up now, up to the 6 in hand. Does he hit what he needs? He does hit. It's absolutely everything. And the cram.
And the cram.
Double cram in hand as well, which now just gives him more options that he has to consider. As we do see the Mew VMAX come down with the DTE attached, and now has the option. Doesn't hit, of course, the Power Tablets to maybe try and stretch for the knockout, but it's not a terrible position to be in. I mean, Leon only one card in hand, staring down at 2 Mew VMAXs powered up. I think it'll be wise to go into the fresher one just to kind of be able to potentially tank a hit. If
Well, it has to. The one that's attacked in the active used Technoblast last turn. So
oh, yeah, yep, of course.
needs to retreat here, otherwise we'll be attacking with none. And I think that's only fair to see it tails, you know.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3 is pretty solid.
I think he did hit one more Power Tablet, so I think he was actually maybe... no, he needed one more.
Yeah. It was a little bit too much of a reach.
Yeah. I mean, he did get the Mew VMAX and the DT after all. I think he'd be pretty happy with that scenario. Does he choose to play the path? He doesn't want to put himself in the same position that he's going to be forcing Leo in, that they're both just going to be top decking. But
oh, he does put it down.
But yeah, he can just keep switching in between the Mews to try and like force awkward scenarios. So Leon top deck, love to see the hand. It's a path to the peak, an unplayable card right now. So it's going to be really a bit of a struggle here for Leon.
Needs another Mew VMAX.
Needs anything.
I mean, at this point, can still attack with the active Mew VMAX, so could, in theory, Psychic Leap it away to take away that damage, but then that would just open up the 2/2/2 prize route for Nate. Really needs another Mew VMAX to Psychic Leap and move something into the active, or even just Techno Blast for a load of damage. But yeah, that hand is not a good one, and this is what Mew VMAX does. It disrupts the best of any deck, even against itself.
I think he has decided just to plump as much damage on as possible, knowing that this Mew VMAX will be going down. Just a load of damage there with the 220 with the cleansing gloves attached now. Initiative back over to Nate.
Okay, this is interesting here because there is a Power Tablet, and that would take the damage up to 80, which would be enough. So could, in theory, get a knockout here with Psychic Leap.
Which would be, I think, again,
he retreats
the ideal scenario. Of course, just removes the counters there from the Genesect.
I don't think he'll be using it this turn anyway.
Not right now. Both players in top deck mode, but would Nate prefer to just have 2 attackers just out on the field right now? He does. Ooh, he's making that sort of tough decision. I think that Power Tablet is just giving him options here. I think I actually prefer just being able to pivot between two attackers.
Yeah, just shout Max Miracle and leaving two attackers in play.
At the same time, not that he'd know, but with our lovely caster cam, we get the chance to see what prizes we will be taking. And there is that Ultra Ball, so he can just kind of go straight back into, well, without the DT in hand, I suppose. Might be a little bit more
He got the
difficult.
Lost Vacuum, so he can start drawing, but wouldn't be able to replace Stadium. There's
Oh, wow, it's a top deck.
top deck of the Ultra Ball there for Leon, so we'll be able to respond, but by having a Mew VMAX in play, there would be a world in which we see lots of draw into anything like a boss to be able to get one of those two prizes.
And with two boss left in deck, I believe, initiative over to Nate to take game one. This could be massive for this potential final turn of game one.
Sometimes a knockout, the best thing about it is you get to draw 3 cards.
Yeah, right?
And then you know vaguely what those 3 cards are going to be based off of your prize check. So to get that Lost Vacuum off the prizes is huge here, as it will start that motoring through the deck to find the boss's orders.
The hand could be pretty much played down almost to 0, I believe, with all these cards, the Ultra Balls, the playable DTEs, of course, and the tablet itself. Ooh, has he left himself a little bit short?
Okay, so we'll
Oh, it has the DT on the attacker on the bench, so that doesn't matter. Yep, so we'll be just kind of thinning his hand down to 0 to maximize his draws. Double checks how many boss outs are there. Should be 2.
Remember, only 2 Genesect though, so he's got a 5 boss off of 2 Genesect. Does get a 6 draw off of that first one.
No target here for Nate. Does he have access to one more VMAX, or has he had to discard one earlier in the game?
I was going to say, if he got that out, that would have thinned one card. He could evolve one of the Mews available. I don't know if that was in there. We'll see here.
Fresh 6. I think the chances are pretty high, I'd like to say. There's the boss in hand. There's the boss for one of the more squishier Vs. And Nate Doyle will be taking game 1 of round 10.
What a game there is. That is exactly what happens in the Mew VMAX mirror. It is very disruptive, and it's whoever can lock that disruption up. If you can judge while the path is in play, it can really affect the outs of the opponent. And we saw there was a moment in the middle of that game where both players were top decking, and it was just Nate who came out of that top deck mode a little bit more favorable as he had the more established board state with the Mew VMAX there. So good first game here for Nate.
Very good.
We can see the differences in the builds even just within that first game.
Yeah, I think Nate was just able to kind of have the right cards he needed in hand pretty much every single time, right? He had the Lost Vacuum to kind of start building out his own play, sorry, the Forest Sealstone, I guess, to get the Lost Vacuum, despite Leon. In theory, that opening turn was incredible. He had everything he needed. He had a Lost Vacuum, he had a Mew VMAX, he had a DTE, but just that one judge and then a replay of the path to the peak from Nate's side just chucked all of the advantage over to Nate, despite Leon going first and getting the first attack off.
I'm going to call out Joe Bernard. Hopefully you're watching. I told him 4 Forest Sealstone would be great in Mew, and he said, no. That's far too many Forest Sealstones. And we saw it just there, how important that was, getting them all set up early, having access to any cards you want at the right moments, which in the mirror in particular was so key to get out of that situation. And I'm sure it's been super key to get set up early as well. So 4 Forest Sealstone, we've seen 3 quite often. But it seems to be such an important card in this deck.
I think it's one of those things where you go swings and roundabouts in the meta again. We talk about this a lot as we start to see the prevalence of path decks, so Arceus, Giratina, playing multiple copies of Path to the Peak themselves, and then of course Mew doing so well, as it always kind of has done really. But when you start to see a lot more of these decks, when you then have an out to that crazy disruption that we're starting to see, or more of them, you're going to have a better time.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that you can play so many of them down, because sometimes when you just have the one down, you often see a Lost Vacuum onto your own Forest Sealstone to take away your only out. So we'll see what happens here. Anyone who's just tuning in, we mentioned before, there are some proxies for the Pokemon in the deck for Leon. So Grass is Mew VMAX, Lightning is Mew, and Fighting will be Genesect. So you saw there 2 Pokemon technically were in that first hand, but they were both evolution Pokemon.
Yeah, as we do see Leon giving a mulligan to Nate. You know, it's always nice to see more cards, particularly going seconds, because Leon's very likely to go first in this scenario, because he can again get to the attacks off earlier. As we now kind of just hope Leon does get a basic to start the game.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. Those 2 power tablets in the prizes for Nate could be huge, because I know that Nate needed to try and reach for a knockout in that last game, but probably won't be doing so here and we saw how important the disruption and targeting down 2 prizes was, and just going for a 2-hit knockout on the Mew, really focusing on disruption rather than trying to reach for a big knockout.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a second mulligan, so crazy. Leon just trying to get started with one of those basic Pokemon, but just some news in to try and help you guys at home and anyone watching the stream. We will be trying to just provide some proxies over the cards where possible, just so you can easily follow without us having to always explain that the grass energy is a Mew VMAX.
Oh, okay, now that is a hand right there for Leon. That is, you know, when you've had a few mulligans, you just hope you don't get a hand of guff. you want to see something that can be played, and 2 Battle VIP passes is definitely the good stuff.
Yeah, so both players this time starting the Mew. There's the proxy, thank you very much. Now we can follow along without too much trouble. Hoping that doesn't mess with Leon too much, because he has been playing with some of those energies as Pokemon for some time. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, it would throw me off for sure, but now he is staring at his own Mew V for the time being.
Well, thank you very much, production. Always coming through here. You know, this is one of those things where fair play is so important at these events, and deck checks happen all the time. And stuff like this, and I know people might think, that's crazy, why don't you just replace the whole deck? And it's like, you have a nice system that's fair. We've seen it before in the past where there's like one card that might be slightly warped or bent. And, you know, these guys play a lot of games of Pokemon, right?
Exactly.
They shuffle these cards hard a lot of the time, and that just shows how much experience Leon has with this deck, as he's been playing these cards so many times.
Yeah, and this first battle VIP pass, grabbing the double Genesect, and here comes the second. Of course, we will make sure and look to make sure that these proxies will not stay in his deck anytime soon, so he doesn't end up with an illegal deck at all. But yeah, just for the viewers at home, that we will make sure we can follow as well as we can.
Apparently these are my cards.
Yeah.
They've gone through my bag and they found my Mew VMAX deck. And actually, just to talk about that for a second, I looked at Leon's list and it's 2 cards away from my list. And I was very excited to see that a player as good as Leon had come to a very similar conclusion. But I'm actually, slightly after seeing Nate's list, I'm slightly leaning towards what I'm seeing from Nate's side. I really love what he's trying to do here with 4 Featherball, 4 Forest Seal. So we'll see whether that comes through in this game here. And that's...
Wow.
3 VMAX.
Yeah, 3 VMAX in the hand. I don't think he got the path, so it's just playing the additional card there. Does have Judge for future turns, but doesn't end up disrupting Nate in any way, shape, or form, as Nate does have multiple mulligans after all, remember. He is going to be working with a pretty large hand.
For Nate, there's only 2 paths to the peak in the deck as well, so you've got to remember that it's not as easy for Nate to get that path to the peak. So there is a chance where at the end of this turn, we do see both players having no path in play.
But yet again, Nate with a free, with 75% on heads right now, having to play the cram turn 1 without any, ball search or battle VIP pass in the hands means he can easily just start plugging away and getting those Pokemon down. Oh, it did have a nest ball there. But
yeah, and you see the way these guys play is they, rather than finding the battle VIP pass, playing it and then getting the Pokemon, they get the Pokemon to the front of the deck just so they know what they're going to be playing down. And thinking a few steps ahead. It's very easy to take a card out of your deck, play it straight away, and then go back into your deck and find out you haven't got it. So these top players just going through all the steps one by one. That's that kind of difference maker for a top player.
Yeah, and we do just have a quick little scan of the prizes as well. Nate having just one of his 4 copies. Oh, wait, sorry. One of his 3 copies of Lost Vacuum and 2 power tablets. And Leon, again, slightly more difficult this time with the 2 DTEs there. Does already have 1 established on the board, which won't be, disrupted in any way, shape, or form. So he's not too bad at all. And 1's actually pretty low in the prizes. So he's probably going to be looking to try and get that 1 out pretty quickly.
Yeah, Double Turbo Energy can be such a hard target to find in the deck. It's one of the few important cards early on that you cannot directly search for through other cards. You have the ball search to find the Pokemon, but the energy and the path is often the hardest things to find early on to try and get that dream combination of disruption.
Yeah, as we do see the choice of the Battle VIP pass there by Nate. Of course, did spend a little bit longer with your first deck search. Something, is a bit of a a player rule between players to allow just additional time just to kind of double check, because then your searches later on in the game should be relatively a bit quicker. As we do also see more playable cards down, insta-played by Nate, just so he can maybe just fin his deck. And there's the Judge. 3 Mew VMAX going back into the deck.
Interesting, yeah. No, I mean, the Judge itself is a huge disruption. If the path comes down here too, we could see a similar story to what happened in that first game of Nate setting up and disrupting well. And it's one of those weird ones in this matchup. Going first is great because you get to evolve first and initiate that first attack, but you do not get to disrupt as well first. You don't get to put that Judge down. You sometimes get the path down, as we saw last time, but that first Judge, it can be so devastating.
Yeah, so
for the new hand.
From Leon's side, he typically would be quite comfortable because he does play the 4 copies of Lost Vacuum, as we mentioned earlier, and of course his own 2 copies of Forest Sealstone. Has a cram right now from the Judge to 4, but right now
get the Nate luck.
Yeah,
Cram-o-matic.
He's had 1 tails already so far. Does have 2 of his outs prized, so he only has 3 cards that can give him an out in the deck itself. Currently hasn't got it.
We shall see. We haven't seen the path down yet.
Very true. Nothing.
Few steps
said.
first.
As we do see Nate's side, he wants to draw more cards. Let's play the power tablet. Draws 2 from Fusion Strike System. Battle VIP Pass, another instant playable because he still has a bench space there. Will be able to potentially get another Genesect. No, he has 3 Genesect down. 1 is prize. We'll be getting the 3rd Mew V down. So now can Fusion Strike System up to the 6.
Yeah, wanting to get that 3rd Mew down as well to have access to Psychic Leap. The dream board state in this matchup is 2 Mew VMAX and a Mew, so you can Psychic Leap damage out of play. Also acts as quite a nice pivot at points. And if you have a Psychic Leap with just the 1 Mew, it's quite a scary place to be. So this is the strongest board state, but when a Genesect gets knocked out, as we saw last game, having 1 prize can be relevant.
Yeah, as we do see a further Fusion Strike System up to the 6. 2 more cards, another Battle VIP Pass. Has now seen 3 throughout this turn. Not too sure there's many other playable cards here, which will give the initiative over to Leon.
Oh, that breath there from Leon of thank goodness for that. No path to the peak. I can play the game this turn. And you can see the speed at which he's entered
Oh,
this
and
turn.
he's hit his heads. It's 50-50 now with Cram-o-matics. Will be able to grab any card he wants. Does eye up the Mew VMAX because he will need an attacker. We know all 3 that he does play are in deck because he did have it in his hand turn 1.
So this is a big turn now for Leon. Can he establish a stable board state, double Mew VMAX, double energy, get the Judge, get the path down, and then he'll be safe from disruption because he has everything on board he needs to continue attacking.
As we now also see 4 cards down as a proxies for that Mew VMAX because of the 2 energies and then the 2 proxies on top. It's going to be a pretty stacked Mew VMAX.
Very nice looking Mew VMAX, that one, if I do say so myself. And we shall see.
Oh, there's the boss again.
Going for the boss rather than the Judge, knowing that the path could be enough.
Does have the Forest Sealstone, can potentially get that attached to try and protect himself from further path to the peaks as well. Of course, insta-playable. There's the tablet to be able to reach the KO on the Genesect after the DTE reduction.
Ultra Ball would be huge here. No Ultra
Does have
Ball.
the Choice Belt as well. No Ultra Ball yet. Plays another tablet. Wants to try and disrupt Nate's side of the board with a path. There it is.
Oh, and a Choice Belt too. Again, setting up that stable board state.
All the multipliers.
All the multipliers. I mean, the fact that you're going for a big hit here isn't that relevant. The power tablets aren't particularly relevant in this matchup because you're rarely going to be able to reach for that big Mew VMAX knockout. It's so much about that path to the peak disruption. And the question is, that Lost Vacuum is there, but there's not a huge amount of playables in that hand, so might need to just go straight for that Judge.
No, it does have the Lost Vacuum, I believe.
Yeah, Lost Vacuum, and then the hand is
into
pretty
the,
big cloggers.
Yeah, that's glad you were able to get that word out of your mouth there. It's pretty clogged up, we'll say, and we do see the Mew VMAX coming down as well. So 4 cards in hand, as we do see our Lost Zone counters come up as well. Not necessarily in this matchup, although we have seen the odd person try and play a Cram in.
Honestly, I've got to Sableye range before with this matchup, it can be pretty crazy. You see that boss coming in, getting that other Mew.
Ooh, chooses to try and target down the Mew with the DT and the modifier. That does hit his own DTE and will be taking a return KO here as well. We'll be looking to try and at least make Leon utilize that Forest Seal Stone as soon as possible by getting his own path, because it just takes out a number of outs there from Leon's side of the field.
Yeah, I mean, the Genesect was big last game because it reduced the amount of draw outs. I think Nate here focusing on, if I get rid of the secondary attacker, there's a position where that Mew VMAX attacks and then has to stick around to take another hit. So
there's a return KO. Leon did pull one of the DTEs that were prized out of the prizes there and does draw into the Chromatic. No path in play right now. Very different to game one, where both players will be able to access all of their draw. The Chromatic heads, Leon being able to now utilize that to full effect.
I think we know why both these guys have won 8 games. Those Chromatics have been in their favor. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot more than that. They've been playing super well here, but we can see the difference in the two decks of Leon is the one who's in control of the disruption a bit more. You could see Nate was rarely getting into those parts of the peaks. It was kind of like Leon missed the path where Nate didn't quite get to the path, you know? Like, it's expected from Leon at this stage. So
another boss to disrupt once again. Nate's side of the board, leaving just one Genesect remaining after this KO, and Nate has one more.
In as well.
Yeah, of course, just targeting down the 2-2-2 route, as you mentioned. It's far easier to go through that rather than having to hit through a Mew VMAX with that chonky 310 HP.
It is a big VMAX right there, and that's what we're seeing in the current meta, is VMAXs are actually very strong because having over 300 hit points is massive right now, where a lot of things target that 280 range, and we'll see what happens off of this draw. And this, without the path to the peak in play, it favors the player who gets that first knockout, which in this game was Leon. And so if you can set up a stable board state, as we mentioned, with double Mew VMAX, double energy as it has seen here, and gets his own path down, should be in a strong position.
50-50 with those Chromatics now, Ultra Balling away that Mew VMAX because it's not playable after just benching that Mew V, but wanting to draw into one of his 3 remaining path outs, or paths, I should say, in his deck, because one is currently prized. Will be taking it from the prizes should he take the bottom 2 as well. Fusion Strike system up to 6 from the second Genesect. Does have one more playable cards with the Ultra Balls.
So useful at this stage to draw into those Ultra Ball, thinning out cards, able to get more access to that Genesect. Doesn't need any Pokemon now, has everything on board needed to win this game. As we mentioned, the Forest Seal Stone is still there, and you can see that V-Star marker has not been flipped, so a great position to be in.
I can't believe he's missed it. It looks like that's not any of his paths. With I guess he's played one already, hasn't he? One
I don't think he needs the path, to be honest. I mean, it will help him potentially disrupt the opponent, but just needs to find access to another boss. Thin as many cards as possible to access that boss.
I mean, I'd rather just say I can play the game and you can't. But yeah, without it at all, does have the 2 Mew VMAX, just needs to find boss. Nate will be looking to try and maybe, does he play the Rocks? He does play one copy of the Roxanne as well, which is activated now that Leon has taken 4 prizes.
I imagine what Leon was trying to do was thin the deck as much as possible to get access to the boss. Maybe even try and get the path to force a Lost Vacuum onto that rather than the Forest Seal Stone, because at this point, if Nate can disrupt with the Roxanne, get the path down, and get rid of that Forest Seal Stone, it could put Leon in a really rough position. Yeah,
that's going to have to be the direction of play here, because that V-Star marker hasn't been flipped by either players yet. There's the Roxanne that Leon knew was going to be coming down, and Nate's
Lost Vacuum before.
Yeah.
Interesting. He had the Lost Vacuum in hand.
Oh, okay.
Could have Lost Vacuum the Forest Seal Stone there beforehand.
Sometimes you do get a little bit tunnel vision in making sure you get the Roxanne play. Maybe just needs to just take in the bigger picture sometimes to just kind of notice, you have an out there sat waiting. Maybe he'll just get a chance to once he draws his 6 cards.
Yeah, because Leon has game with a boss just on the board here. So we'll see what happens off the back of this Roxanne.
Instant boss from the 2. Does have the little smirk and smile.
He's trying to hide it. He's trying to hide it. He knows.
What more could he want? I think that would be game. But of course, Nate doesn't know that. Has to continue playing to his out here, as he just kind of eyes up what options are available. Of course, with the power pad back in, Leon just playing that poker face every so often. The little twitch of the smile is seeking through as he's watching Nate play out his hand.
All right, let's see. Nate right now has no idea what could be in that Roxanne hand. We've seen so many effective Roxannes in the past. We've also seen some that you put the opponent in the exact 2 cards they need to win the game. So we'll see what happens off the back of this. Really needs to thin that deck, try and set up the path if he wants to put himself in his best position as possible, playing this out as he should do.
And remove that Forest Sealstone. Again, you know, play to your maximum outs. This is what we always tell our players, that we do see all of our friends. You know, obviously no one can see each other's hands unless you play a specific card that allows you to. So it's just do what you can in this scenario. I think Nate feels like he's missed something as just using his own Forest Sealstone. Just targeting that lost vacuum. So he's picked up on it if he did happen to have it in his hand before the rocks.
Yeah, I think he had it before the rocks, but again, like, you probably think, I want to make sure I've got that in case the path comes through. But at this stage, there is nothing more important than disrupting Leon's ability to get out of this situation. The Roxanne plus path.
Yeah, so he does play it correctly. All of those outs possible will just be smacking into the Mew VMAX, it looks like, as he chooses. But he does just show the boss, which is a bit unfortunate there. Leon will be taking game 2 and tying up the series. So both players, well, actually only Leon's currently still undefeated right now, but we do have 10 minutes. So, and it's very possible that we do see a conclusion to this game.
I mean, Mew can be quite a quick matchup, and when there's no path in play, we can see a lot quicker of a matchup because it's the drawing and motoring through the deck that takes time with Mew, as we saw in that game there. But it just depends on how the start goes, really. As you saw there with Leon, if no disruption happens early on, the ideal scenario for Leon is to not disrupt, because he gets that first 2 prizes, and then from then on just wants to keep getting those boss's orders onto the 2 prizes and go 2-2-2. The other way around, it's a lot harder to win the game when you have to rely on disruption, because you might have to go through a Mew VMAX. Because if you're disrupting, you're not using your boss's orders, and when you're disrupting, there's probably going to be a Mew VMAX in the active spot.
Yeah, it's one of those scenarios where sometimes the escape rope can come up trumps, as it were, as we do pan back to our players, setting up for the final game of our round 10 to kick us off for day 2. Both players 1-1. Both players, as we mentioned, with 16 wins from day 1 between them, in a fantastic position to try and push themselves into, hopefully, a top 8 position.
Who would have thought it, Mew VMAX, after winning a tournament, still good, still at the top, and it is just that disruption package that makes it so powerful. And I think the Nate list is interesting because they've put the Lost City in there. So it's more of an old-fashioned way to deal with Drapion, rather than the modern style, which is Path Roxanne, I hope you don't find a Clara, for a lot of decks. So I think Nate has recognized Mew's done well, has acknowledged that he'll need to find a way to defeat a Drapion if there is one, and consequently his list is a little bit different to the usual lists.
I think there's a pretty strong opening hand from Leon's side of the board. Nate, for clarity, I think did gesture that he will be going first, the first time in this series as well. Leon is holding a Battle VIP pass and an Ultra Ball. Those prizes that have just been laid out now, again, all of sort of the one of many copies from his deck. As Nate will be looking to just try and take some quick knockouts and disrupt early on, you know, do what Leon tried to in the first couple of games.
We'll see what happens here off of this first turn. There is...
Again, pretty strong hand, I think.
Yeah,
Yes, ball, Battle VIP pass, Judge ready for future turns.
With the 4 Forest Sealstone, you're almost guaranteed an out to get going. But ideally in this matchup, you don't want to have to use that Forest Sealstone.
There comes down to Proxy again, your deck.
My deck.
To help showcase on the field so that we can follow along a little bit easier, as Nate does insta-play that Battle VIP pass to grab 2 basics to bench on his side of the field.
Yeah, I think Shay was telling us in Malmo that it's about 40% of the time you'll start with a Battle VIP pass in your opening hand if you've got 4 of them. And then it's even more likely in some decks like your Lost Boxes, where they can start digging deeper with Flower Selecting and Greninja. And then even more likely in Mew VMAX when you got access to that Forest Sealstone if you want to. So the likelihood of Mew VMAX setting up most games is so high, and even higher for Nate's list. As you can see, the the nest ball in hand. There is only one nest ball in Nate's list, 4 feather ball, 4 battle VIP pass, 4 ultra ball. So many ways to get going.
Yeah, definitely there, as Nate will be looking to try and disrupt as much as possible. This time round does have 2 of those DTEs prized, but it does have 1 in hand. Similar scenario to Leon in the second game. We'll be able to sort of play that down and know it won't be disrupted. So a pretty safe opportunity there for Nate's side of the board, with now 4 Fusion Strike Pokemon down.
Sometimes when you're setting up with Mew VMAX in the mirror, you just want to get fully set up, get an energy down, and then try and play a path down if possible. It's a little bit tougher for Nate with only 2 in the deck. We saw it work fairly well for Leon, but then you are susceptible to being judged on your own path to the peak. On this occasion, I don't think that's going to be possible here for Nate. Not quite optimizing his start here and getting all the basics out, as there is a Forest Seal Stone activation. So early Forest Seal Stone, as we mentioned, can be a way to get that Battle VIP pass that you need. But it does mean that access to that later on in the game is no longer available. So Leon will be looking at that and thinking Judge Path will be a lot more effective in this game now.
Yeah, now leaving Nate with, I guess, the 4 outs in his deck, the 3 Lost Vacuums and the Lost City, if a path does happen to come down from either board, either player, really.
Either way, yeah. Nothing more satisfying than judging someone with their own path in play and then watching them struggle afterwards.
You see Fusion Strike system, it does hit the Lost Vacuum, doesn't have a path, currently hits another Battle VIP pass after that Forest Seal Stone for a Battle VIP himself, as he does just pass it over to Leon, of course. Instant playing his own, double checking the prizes as per usual, but also just kind of setting up his board, maybe not even double checking, but I guess he has more further searches in his deck. Does have 2 paths, 2 of his 4 paths in hand as well.
Yeah, the Ultra Ball for a double turbo engine path, and Nate's not going to like seeing that path being discarded. That means there's probably another one in the hand.
Yeah, and another, you wouldn't be throwing away another DTE without another one in the hand. So
very
he
much
knows
reveals
what's happening.
the hand.
Yeah, exactly that. I guess kind of playing now with a bit more sort of pace. Let's just see if they could complete this final game, because, an extra win will take them so much further towards that top 8 position, as we do see, a little bit less or maybe a quicker prize check there from Leon.
Yeah, and there we go, the Genesects and the Mews down. We see that Ultra Ball there, so that's going to help some more draw. There is an escape rope too, but that's probably going to be discarded with the Ultra Ball.
Like I said, props to Leon for being able to play down those proxies on top of proxies, because now it looks like almost energy attachments there as well. But of course, they won't be playing basic fighting or lightning energy or grass energy, as a matter of fact. But again, that could, upset the rhythm, upset the play, as we do see a further Ultra Ball there of a second DT. I mean, when you're going through them, typically you won't need more than 2. In this kind of matchup anyway, because unless suddenly a big, massive KO happens, you still always have access to the 1 as an attacker as well.
Yeah, there was a debate there whether to hold the hand, just put the path down, hold the Ultra Ball, have access to the attack next turn, but knows that Nate is holding on to a hand that he made through that first turn, so we'll probably have something good in there, and we know there's a Lost Vacuum, there's a Judge, there's all sorts of good stuff. Leon really needs to try and find a Judge here to try and work effectively with that path to the peak. So we'll be trying to get it off of this 4 draw from the Fusion Strike system. Does he find it?
Does get a Forest Seal Stone, but usually he wants to hold on to that for when he wants to bump his own path. Does have another Ultra Ball, so can further thin out the deck and also get additional draw with a Mew V coming down now as well, as we do see the attachment of the Mew V to that lightning energy.
Yeah, just one more Genesect to go. And we'll see whether that comes through. We know that the draw potential here with that Nast Genesect is quite high, because there's a Forest Seal Stone that can be played down as well.
Yeah, so draw 5 further cards. Looking for whatever he can in terms of that Cram. Does have...
Oh, Cram-O-Matic could be big. It might be a Cram-O-Matic for the Judge here. This could be a huge roll. Let's see, Cram-O-Matic for the Judge. What's it going to be?
Good to remind our viewers that you cannot now no longer Cram-O-Matic.
There it is.
Choice well, but yeah, there's the heads. Both players, I think, hitting a good amount of heads now with the Cram-O-Matics. We'll be taking a vital piece, as we do see the Judge come down.
My goodness.
Already knowing that Nate has used his V-Star ability, Star Alchemy, to try and just pop off with those Battle VIP passes instead of using it for things like the Lost Vacuum.
So off of these next draws, Nate needs to find a Lost Vacuum or that Lost City to get drawing. Maybe even just access to a Mew VMAX, but has to try and switch out the Genesis. Oh no, because that's going to be knocked out next turn. But I mean,
Leon walking straight, well, judging straight into those Lost Vacuums and another path. So he's got, and a Mew VMAX, so he's just got turns to go. There's the boss. Instant. He doesn't have really many other playable cards, looking to just try and disrupt.
oh my goodness. Is this disruption working here?
Could this be a quick, oh, there's the power pad. 50 seconds on the clock. If Leon's able to somehow get out of this, take a knockout before time, and Nate draws a card, he will have 2 further turns to try and maybe take this game, but the clock is ticking, it's counting down right now. It's a little bit tense. I'm not too sure if Leon knows the time that's remaining, as Nate does just pass, does draw V-Star instantly. 25 seconds on the clock. He's powering through DTE to retreat.
Oh, look at the shuffle. He's got to get it done quick.
He needs the attack off before time is called. Isn't even using this. Does have the VMAX in hand. And just takes the knockout. 10 seconds for the KO. Does push it to the active. Promotes. Draw card. 5 seconds. There it is. 2 turns for Leon.
We'll see. We'll see if this comes through. Leon knew that time was close there. Had to get it done as quick as possible. Now we'll have to try and find a way to get through 2 more knockouts.
2 Lost Vacuums in hand. Does now have 3 DTEs in the discard.
That is true.
Has to find a way to pivot between his Pokemon. Cannot pivot between attackers now. So has to get back into that Mew VMAX. Is that just a pass?
I think so. So the tough thing here for Leon is the switch outs are very few. I think we've seen maybe even the switch cart get used. There was one point where I think we saw a retreat without a retreat used.
Nate,
so
oh, there's escape rope. Nate was holding 2 boss. Maybe should have been looking to try and boss twice.
If he bosses, then that's going to reset the Mew VMAX. So I guess if he bosses a Genesect, yeah, that could have been an option there.
It's an option to just keep bossing, just to try and find a way out here, as we do see the escape rope into the Mew as a free pivot option.
Also, might need to even think about disrupting here.
Yeah, not looking too pretty at this current moment in time. I would have liked to have seen that boss to just keep forcing questions out of Leon here.
Maybe even a Max, okay, a Max Miracle wouldn't do enough because you could still boss around it, as you mentioned. So yeah, this is going to be about setting up a stable board.
Dramatic heads. Leon able to take any card out of his deck. We'll just have to make sure he has his outs to those escape ropes and switch cart. He does play 2 copies of escape rope. We've seen 1 used already. Switch cart, I believe, still in deck.
I think he's thinking about a Max Miracle here. So he's trying to get the power tablet, and there's another power tablet in there with the choice belt that would just put it in range of a Max Miracle knockout on the Mew. But I think that very clearly indicates to Nate. Nate can very quickly check through the discard pile and know that a boss stall could be possible. If he can get the Max Miracle, that means the Mew VMAX in the active spot wouldn't need to be reset. So that's the angle I think we're seeing Leon go down here.
I think there's just some clarity on the number of turns as well, and just walking through his motions, making sure he's able to play this down correctly, because he doesn't want to overutilize some of those cards. He wants to maximize his draw to get those tablets where possible. Nate's finally checking that discard to see what outs Leon has, because if he does Max Miracle as an option, it's a tricky one, because he wants to maximize his outs. Does play the Judge.
Oh, so those bosses need to be found again now for Nate. This is very intricate here.
Or maybe a Rock's Path. Number of options. Leon's not going to be play. Will he play his own path down? If only, I guess, he walks into one of those Lost Vacuums yet again, because there's just a few more pieces. If he can get a Max Miracle off, that would be big, of course.
Wow, this is tense right here. So Leon will have a complex route to victory. The only player of the 2 here that can win, where Nate is just looking to make sure there is no victory. So we'll be looking to disrupt, use boss's orders, as we mentioned, to try and get a Genesect up. 3 double turbo energy in the discard, 2 escape rope, and I believe the switch cart as well. So challenging position now.
Genesect up to the 6. There's the second Mew VMAX.
Okay.
That can now utilize that attack. Does have the Lost Vacuum as well. Does play it down. He needs to Lost City card from his hand. There you go. So he can draw more. He's just looking for those additional cards. There's another power tablet.
Okay. Okay, we see
That's
that.
the 170, I guess, with the already modifier tool. Max Miracle does mean he will be able to Technoblast next turn.
Needs that part of the peak to fully disrupt here. No access to it.
Yeah, so Nate's also identifying that there's just no other energies. Attachment might look a little bit odd, as we mentioned, because of those proxies being used. Nate promoting his free pivot option. Does have the Mew VMAX, which could tank a hit as well. So this is turn 2 of the final 3 turns here. Big for Leon, as he could progress with a 901 record if he's able to take the dub, but Nate will be doing everything he can to prevent that and not suffer another defeat.
Nate just checking the discard there for any way to switch out of a Genesect. We know that so many had to go early on through that rush through the deck from Leon, had to discard a lot of energy, was not ideal in that first turn, had to discard 2, has had to use 1 to retreat a Genesect. So is in a tough position here. As we see an Ultra Ball getting rid of a lot of cards in that hand, which will mean the next draw will be huge.
Nate will want to go into, I believe, two Mew VMAXs as well, so to stop that potential escape rope play, meaning it forces Leon into having to find a boss as well. Of course, right now, prioritizing maybe drawing more cards because he will need to get those disruption cards into hand. Of course, now Leon's taken 4 prizes. Roxanne is an option. Roxanne Path being even better than Judge.
Good work.
Of course. Still options here for Nate to maybe just tie up this game and round for round 10.
I think on the side of Nate, he's going to be working out what's better, Roxanne Path or Boss Path.
Could also go for a gigantic KO with all the damage mods.
That is also possible. Get rid of all the energy.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's just no way out for Leon. So again, a couple of, I wonder if that's a potential option here.
It depends on what he draws, right?
Exactly that, because he has already used his V-Star, Star Alchemy power.
So
Does have a few cards to keep drawing through.
Escape proof now with the double Mew VMAX.
Yep. So lots of questions to ask. Does have quite a big deck still. Is he holding, is that a Judge that he held on to?
Roxanne, maybe? Okay, so getting all the Mew VMAX down.
Makes sense. There's the Roxanne.
Okay, so we're going down the Roxanne route here. So Roxanne Path is the route Nate's going for. So does put it in favor of Leon a little bit more than the boss, I think.
Could still go down the route of taking this massive KO here if he's double-checked that there's no DTs remaining. I'm backing it. We want to see a massive KO given the opportunity, because that would just wipe out any opportunity Leon has. Doesn't even allow Leon that final turn to try and take a victory in this round 10.
So
but let's see this draw of 6.
Massive knockout Roxanne Path approach. That's a...
I mean, Path's just a cherry on the top at that point. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, he needs a lot of modifiers. There's the boss in hand. So that's big. Can't quite yet
Oh, look at that hand. That is not a good hand to be seeing there.
There we go.
Not many insta-playables. Okay. So
Just
he's
double checking. According to our screen, yeah, the energy has yet to be attached this turn, which is what we love to see from our overlay, of course. Now will be marked.
Oh,
hopefully
no, Genesect for
Genesect
one.
for 1.
And it's an echoing horn.
Oh, another not insta-playable. Unfortunately,
Oh my
again,
goodness.
Leon staring down, and he does just have boss in hand. Boss, Genesect,
He's done it.
Technoblast for KO. Oh,
He Max Miracled last turn.
yeah, he
with
did
the-
Max
with
Miracle.
the damage
Leon
modifiers.
takes the dub, the
Done it.
celebration. Congratulations to Leon there for winning our round 10, going 9-0-1 now after that struggle of the first game.
That is incredible. Our Liverpool regional champion coming through and showing every situation there. Every out was possible. The Roxanne just not being very favorable there for Nate. And that final hand, you see Boss, Judge, Boss, Path. Double
Yes.
turbo energy, not the kind of cards you want. No Ultra Balls to thin, no power tablets to use. And so the final out of the big knockout was not there. Leon closing out the game, just enough time to do so.
It felt like those judges were the sort of key cards to really disrupt Leon. Roxanne wasn't enough. 2 cards is always enough for Leon to come through, pull through, and take the dub. Like I said, 9-0-1, undefeated still in our Turin special event.
UV Max still a very good deck, maybe even the best deck right now in the format.
I've always called, from my perspective, UV Max the best deck. Not in format, best deck. Because for a deck to always come up trumps in so many tournaments, have so many counters to it, it always has to be kept in check.
So can you explain to me why when I gave you my UV Max deck and said, play this at Malmo, Alex, why did you go back to Lost Box?
I went to a comfort pick.
Okay.
We do okay with those kind of tight decisions.
I'm sure.
From EUIC, and I was able to, play Sablezard once again. I just like Charizard. But I did tell you it was going to be my second pick if I had the choice.
It's a very, very good deck right now. Even though people know it's a good deck and there are so many techs, everyone could chuck 4 Drapions in. It wouldn't make other matchups as good.
Not at all.
But it's still like there is options to beat Mew in every deck. You just have to lean it more towards a slightly more teched out version. And so many players now try and avoid techs because some of our best players in our region, people like Tord, they don't put many techs in a deck and it makes it consistent. It means you're good against every deck. But then when Mew VMAX starts doing well, you have to start thinking dark type attacker, dark type attacker. So I'm sure a lot of people off the back of this, when they see the Mew VMAX doing well, they'll be wanting to put a Drapion back in.
Well, that's it. It's always got a target on its back, which is why it's had these counters. Drapion in and out of probably every deck, which could swing the matchup percentage by like maybe 5 to 10%. But because there's so much disruption, particularly in these builds, the DTE builds, of course, but the paths, it can do enough to even just overcome that stretch of one Drapion. I've seen decks with 2 Drapions. Gudra has played 2 Drapion. I know a couple of people who played Gudra with double Drapion, but sometimes that doesn't always allow you to stretch beyond the Mew VMAXs as well. So
the day I went to Mew VMAX this format was when I played 2 Drapion and still lost. And I went, okay, if I can be beaten by Mew with 2 Drapion, then this deck disrupts more than enough to beat anything. And we're seeing that here still in Turin. Our first round of the day, 10th round of the tournament. We see 2 of our strongest players here on the top table coming through with Mew VMAX, and our Liverpool regional champion, Leon, going into that 9-0-1 position in a very commanding position going forward. Likely see him in the top 8.
Yeah, well, he's, like I said, 9 wins. So it puts him 27 points, plus the tie, 28 points right now. Smaller, I guess, day 2, which means that there's less points needed to sort of guarantee him that spot. Maybe another win and a tie could put him pretty much there with 31. But of course, I know he's going to be looking to try and take down the tournament in as great fashion as possible. But, I think it was mentioned by our other co-casters earlier, Mew just doing things in Turin, but also over Milwaukee. It's the top deck of both large tournaments. It's just incredible power, the draw power, the attack, everything.
Historically, when Mew VMAX has done well, the worst time to play Mew VMAX is the next tournament. But I think a lot of people have recognized that even if people are prepared for it, it can still do wonders. And I think as more people lean into it, you're starting to recognize the power of the deck and the consistency of the deck. And we even saw there with Nate's build, it was so much more consistent, more focused around Featherballs and for a Sealstone, looking to make sure they set up every single game. But in that mirror, the favor goes towards the one who can disrupt more, the one with the more of a Judge Path Lost Vacuum package, just built out a little bit more fully in Leon's, more like the traditional Judge Path Mew we're seeing. And I'd like to see how Nate plays out into other matchups with the Lost City and everything like that.
Yeah, I definitely really like Nate's list as well, with that consistency. 8-2 now, still plenty of opportunities to make it into our final top 8 as well. But you know what? We really want to be hearing from our Liverpool champion and winner of our round 10 in the Turin special event, Leon, who's going to be interviewed right now. So let's go and hear from him.
Thank you very much, Alex. I am here with Leon. Leon, that last game was so nerve-wracking. That final turn where you just had to avoid being turn 0. Tell us how tense that was.
It was just extremely nerve-wracking. Like, I knew I had only one out in my deck. I knew there was the rope prize. I need to draw the rope to even have a slight of chance of winning this game, let alone get out of Roxanne path. So I knew I had to slam down that energy, retreat, get out the boss, and then just play. But yeah, that was very nerve-wracking even for me. But I was very happy that I pulled it off.
Yeah, we saw how fast you played, and we could see we got the face cam going. Your face when your opponent drew that card before time expired, knowing that you would get 2 more turns to win. That was beautiful. Now you're sitting at 9-0-1, your top seed in the tournament. You're feeling confident, right?
I'm feeling very confident. I'm hoping I can take the win home, top 8 at least. But I hope I get another win for Switzerland.
Well, you see, we were chatting this before. Top 22, obviously, there's a race for top 22, your Day 2 Worlds invite, etc. Can you just tell us how that's going for a second?
So I wasn't really feeling that confident after I bombed the USC. But now, with doing this well at this tournament, I think I have a very good shot if I make at least finals, maybe top 4. I haven't played any cups yet, so I am at least 500 points, plus the points I'm getting here. So it's going to be tight. But I can't go to any IC, sadly, so I also got to hope that my competitors don't do that well there.
That is the unfortunate part about top 22. It is a race. You do have to cheer against people while you're going there. Now, here's an interesting question, right? Last 2 weekends, there were 4 events. 3 of them were won by Mew. You know everybody's trying to tech against Mew, so why would you play Mew?
So, to be honest, there were 2 reasons. I love Mew as a deck, and I was like, okay, one last go before Spiritomb comes out, before it gets obviously worse. And the other one was, I simply don't own any other cards. So, I just had to run it back with good old Mew, and I decided for the DTE version because I just think it's a lot better, a lot more consistent, and a lot better also into the field, because you just are more consistent against no matter which matchup you play. I think Fusion is a bit more reliant on which matchup you hit and also on your draws, and I don't really like that. I like consistency more.
No, I think it seems to be working very well for you. You're 9-0-1, you're undefeated, you're on top seed. Congratulations for you, so far, and good luck for the rest of the tournament.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to talk to you again.
And unfortunately, we are running out of time for this because there's another round, there's more players. Let's go back to the casters, let's have some more action.